everybody! It's good to see you, good to be seen. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. Actually, thank you for being here. I know it must have been extremely difficult to wade through life with much uncertainty these past few months, with the days blending into the nights. It's the same disappointing faces on TV, again and again, delivering us bad news each day. What with everything going on in the world right now, well, I'm sure you must have a lot of thoughts and worries about it. But lucky for you, these are the things you'll actually learn about in polsci. Why we're experiencing all of these problems in society, why everything seems so bleak, what went wrong, what maybe went right, if anything did. All the principles of power in the government, how there even came to be a government, and the role of politics in our everyday life. Actually, the very first thing I learned in polsci was that everything is political. So I guarantee you that being in polsci will open up a whole new world of perspectives and teach you that your line of thinking probably isn't as invincible as you think it is, no matter how much you think you already know. Which is perfect because the best way to strengthen your beliefs is by challenging them. And you can only do that when you cover all your bases by understanding other views and other people and hopefully convincing them to also think critically and make their own informed decisions about the ideas and the people they want to support. So if that's the kind of stuff you're interested in, then congratulations, you chose the right course. Another thing I want to congratulate you for is by working so hard these past few months, because I know, trust me, I know that a lot of things have been giving you anxiety left and right. Your enrollment requirements, your schedules, your UP mail credentials. But hey, look at you now. You've survived your classes so far, so you should give yourself a pat on the back. And this is online classes, by the way, which is frustrating, possibly uncomfortable. So you're doing well, and I'm proud of you. But this is just the beginning, and I'm sure you still have a lot of questions, some of which I'm familiar with because you don't shy away from asking them, and I love that. For those who don't know me, by the way, my name is Adele. I'm 19. I'm a second-year BA Political Science student. This was my second choice course in campus when I applied to UP, and they admitted me here when the UPCAT results came out. I had the option to choose between this or AB English Literature in Ateneo, which is where I went to senior high school under the general academic strand. And after thinking about it for a long 5 days, I opted for UPM. Some of you may refer to me as your ate, while some of you may just be meeting me for the very first time. Either way, I don't think I've been able to share much about my personal journey in polsci, so you may be wondering what qualifies me to do this. Actually, nothing does. But having heard most of your concerns and seeing them manifested in my own blockmates and friends and, well, even myself, I know where you're coming from because, well, most of us have been there too at some point. And while we all deal with it differently, I hope that I can impart some wisdom or at least offer some clarity by telling you a little bit about why I chose UPM and polsci, what my expectations were when I first stepped foot into college, and how I overcame the challenges that I faced during my first year. I mean, the situation is quite different right now, but the lessons to be learned still share the same sentiment, I think, and can still be very helpful for when we go back to campus. I hope the things I talk about today will bring you comfort in the idea that you're not alone. Someone will always be there to help you. And despite the wild, crazy, and tumultuous ride, freshman year will always be a special time in your life, so don't take it for granted. Right, so where do I begin? I had a lot of dreams when I was younger. So many jobs I wanted to take on. First, I wanted to become a doctor. I mean, all of us wanted to become a doctor when we were like 5, right? Then I did ballet, so I thought I could become a professional ballerina or radio DJ. Then after watching too many crime shows, I thought I could become a forensic scientist, journalist, and then eventually I settled for lawyer. But it wasn't really settling because I realized this in the 5th grade. The point is, my mind changed so often because my understanding of what a career actually was still very shallow at the time. I crossed career after career after career off the list when I realized that my heart wasn't really in any of them. It was a spur of the moment thing that seemed cool to me at the time while I was going through my phases, but the desire to become a lawyer wasn't. It stuck with me. I come from a family of public servants, so when I told them about this decision, they had a lot of thoughts about it. Opinions were flying across the board, about which course I should take, what college I should go to, even before I reached high school. And I understood because they were experienced adults, so they think they know what's best for me, and I guess they were just excited that I was following in their footsteps, so to speak. It's honestly really easy to be swayed by the people around you and the environment you grew up in. And I recognize that I'm extremely lucky to have supportive parents, because I know that some people are forced to lead a life that they don't want to, or are forced to take a path that they don't think they're capable enough to handle. I know this because I went to a science high school in junior high, knowing full well that I'm horrible at math and science. But sometimes it's getting what you don't want that makes you realize what you do want instead. And being there for those 4 years of my life just reaffirmed my love for the humanities and social sciences even more. I loved social sciences so much that I wanted to take it up as my strand in senior high, and that would mean that I had to transfer. So I applied to 2 schools, the blue and the green, if you know what I mean. DLSU accepted me in Humes, but there was no scholarship. And Ateneo gave me the scholarship, but I was accepted into a different strand, which is general academic strand. I went to Ateneo not knowing what GA even was, but I ended up loving it there. One thing you should know about GA students in Ateneo is that there is a stigma against us there. We were known as the students who didn't get into our first choice strand, so we had no choice but to just stay, as if we didn't consciously decide to go into GA despite knowing that fact. I know a lot of people, including myself, who said, okay, well, I'll do 1 year here and then I'll transfer the next, but never ended up leaving. Now, does that sound familiar? A lot of college students also apply that kind of mindset, don't they? In fact, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't think the same way last year. When I decided to go to UPM, I planted this idea in my head that I was going to transfer to UPD for the next year. And a lot of my blockmates thought the same way too. They either wanted to shift out but stay in UPM, or transfer to UPD under the same course or the different one. But life has a funny way of making you change your mind. One thing you should know about me is that I thrive on being the underdog, because I love proving people wrong. So when they said that GE was a strand for people who couldn't get into STEM or ABM or Humes, I wanted to prove to them just how smart GE people actually are. And when people raised their eyebrows at me when I said, oh, I go to UPM, with their condescending, bakit hindi UPD? I wanted to prove to them just how challenging it is to actually be here, and that I'm the one who has to prove my worth to the school, not the other way around. A lot of people see UPM and polsci as a stepping stone, a temporary home, a placeholder until they can get to where they really want to be. And sure, I can respect that. I mean, after all, your happiness is what matters the most, and if you can't find it here, well, you should go to where you can. But for me, the bustling streets around UPM, the CAS building where I spend most of my days, even the organized chaos of the PGH, they're all alive. And I think that's what separates us from everyone else, is that despite the unfavorable conditions, we all choose to stay here because we all believe in something bigger than ourselves. All of the people that I have met in my first year, none of them think of just settling here until they find something better. To them, to us, this is home. And that, I think, is what keeps UPM's heart beating. It's us. We're the ones that keep it alive. It's here where we learn how to take care of each other and to take care of ourselves, to love something no matter how difficult it is, to have unadulterated passion in a craft that can never be chained and suppressed. So if you're still unsure right now about UPM and polsci, have some faith and give it time, because it chose you. So I hope you choose it back. While anxiously anticipating for that dreaded first day in college, I had a lot of expectations about how I thought it was going to go. My own ates and kuyas had warned me about the scope of the readings, but nothing prepared me for just how thick those stacks of books and papers are that I needed to read in one night. The good news is, you don't actually have to cram all of those readings in one night. Who would have known? Most of your profs will give you the readings ahead of time. My only problem was I underestimated just how long it actually took for me to get through one reading. My attention span is short, and if the words are hard to digest, I usually just end up falling asleep. So, this is where time management is crucial. I would suggest that once you get your syllabus, you check immediately just how many pages there are in one chapter, and then pace yourself reasonably by reading a little bit each day. I mean, that's better than trying to jam all of the concepts in your head in one night, causing you to short circuit and break down. Now, I also expected that the lessons would be recitation heavy, which I understand can be worrisome for those who have anxiety. But one thing I learned about this is that you don't always have to get it right the first time. I mean, if you're prepared anyway, then there's really nothing to be afraid of. And the profs aren't particular about the language you use. Just use whichever is comfortable and whichever gets the point across. So for this, I would also suggest asking a lot of questions. I know I say this again and again, but it's really helpful. I really can't emphasize just how important it is to ask what you don't understand right then and there so that it can be addressed before it's too late. What I didn't expect, however, was just how diverse the exam types are. Like, I think they're very creative. You'll understand this once you actually take your classes, but you don't need to rely on rote memorization to survive in this course. What you really need is to understand it. I also didn't expect the amount of freedom that I got in college. I mean, it got to the point where it was overwhelming for me. I don't know, I guess when you're used to having such a jam-packed schedule in senior high, you don't really know what to do with your vacant hours in college. But I'll be honest, I spent most of my vacant hours going out with my friends or sleeping in my dorm. And why not, right? I mean, you can't always just be studying. Which brings me to the final thing I didn't expect, which was to make as many friends as I did. I know it's hard for everybody since it's a new environment and you don't really know anyone. I mean, for me, being on my own for the very first time, it was scary. It genuinely felt like being thrown into a lion's den. That's how threatening it was for me. But if there's one thing I know about the people in UPM, is that everyone is so friendly. You'll have no trouble finding somebody you can really click with. The people will welcome you with open arms. And even if you're slow to warm up just like me, you'll be happy that this is the kind of culture you picked up in UPM, where you can make friendships blossom out of nothing. You have to be kind to each other, okay? I can't even emphasize how important it is to have a good support system, especially when you're overcoming obstacles. Looking back at my first year, I think 3 things really gave me a hard time. First, dealing with failure. This is a universal thing, but I think it can really take a toll on you when you're in college because it makes you question whether you even deserve to be in your course in the first place. There's this extreme pressure for you to always do well, and it may be for different reasons. Like, you may be aiming for those Latin honors, you don't want to disappoint your family, you don't want to disappoint yourself, so on and so forth. And that's valid, but I think you have to remember that the wins won't mean as much without the losses. This is a learning experience, not a competition. Whenever you fail, you always have to pick yourself back up, no matter how long it takes. I think this comes hand in hand with exhaustion as well, like the idea that no matter how hard you work, you don't really get the results that you want. And it's frustrating, I know, spending all those sleepless nights only to fall short. What I would suggest, other than developing good study habits and pacing yourself well, is to take breaks. This is where your friends come in because it's hard to carry that burden all on your shoulders. Chances are your blockmates are just as tired as you are, so if any of you need a break, I suggest you take one. It really works. Take it from somebody who has made treat yourself her mantra.
Clothes.
Treat yourself.
Fragrances.
Treat yourself.
Massages.
Treat yourself.
Mimosas.
Treat yourself.
Fine leather goods.
Treat yourself.
It really works. And lastly, let's talk about homesickness. I noticed that a lot of you come from far away, which means you'll probably have to rent a dorm or a condo for when we go back to campus. I myself had to do the same thing last year because let's be honest, it's really more convenient to go to school when you have a place nearby, especially if you have 6-hour-long vacants like I do. But it was hard the first few months. It made me realize everything that I took for granted while I was still living with my family, and it's incredibly lonely being on your own. But I think it's good motivation. I mean, it really allows you to have a sense of independence and responsibility, and it really does make school life easier. I'll admit, I still dread the thought of having to go back to a dorm, but these are just some of the things that you have to grit your teeth for, because at the end of the day, it makes you stronger, and it gives you a newfound appreciation for your family and all of the people you miss so often. I told you a while ago that it took me 5 days to choose polsci here in UPM. It was a long, antagonizing 5 days of just overthinking. And it was a battle of campus and course. I mean, do I stay in my comfort zone or do I leave it? Do I do what I'm already good at or try something unfamiliar and learn something new in the process? Before I go, I want to read you something that I wrote in my diary last year. This is from April 1st. 2019. I passed UPM but not UPD. I was really disappointed because I was ready to go to UPD for English Lit. Now I have to choose between English Lit in Ateneo or polsci in UPM. It's hard. It's really hard. And then 5 days later, April 6th, I'm going to UPM. It's sinking in that there's no turning back now, and everything that I think I knew will be tested. I always asked for a fresh start, but am I ready? I don't know if I am, but it's good to be aware of this reality, I think. And it's good to face it even if I'm not ready. I don't think I ever will be anyway. All I asked is to let me be brave. Because the future is here, and the future is now. It arrives when it pleases, and no matter how ready you think you are, it's never enough to brace you for the impact of the storm oncoming. I'll leave you guys with what I would tell my past self, knowing what I know now. It's not as scary as you think. You're going to make a lot of good memories. And sure, there are some rough patches here and there, but how would you learn otherwise? It's knowing that you're going to make mistakes and still trying anyway that makes a person truly courageous. So be brave and just enjoy. Because one day, when you look back at your freshman year, when all those fleeting moments, you'll remember how special it was. And when that time comes, I hope you don't have any regrets. Welcome to college. You're gonna love it.
우리의 beautiful time